Donald Phelps of Muleshoe has just returned from Washington, D.C., where he went on the South Plains Honor Flight for veterans from our area. Donald, when and where did you serve our country?
In Korea, and from January of 53 to January of 55.
And how long were you in what branch of the service?
I was in the Army Engineers. I went over to Korea in the Army Engineers attached to the Air Force.
I see.
To help rebuild those airstrips to land the Sabre jets on.
And so you also were stationed in the United States some?
Yes, I took basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then we left for Korea, and I was stationed at Fort Sam Houston on release from active duty.
And what years were those?
January of 53 to January of 55.
And so we want to thank you for your service to our country. Now, they gave you sort of a uniform to wear. Everybody wore the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Each day you had a different color shirt.
That's correct. We had, it was the blue dot the first day, and then the white shirt the second day, and the red shirt the last day.
Very patriotic. So now, Donald, tell me, what is the way you got to go? Was there a form you filled out or application you made, or what process do you go through, and how much do you pay?
Yes, there is an application that you have to send in, and then after they receive the application, they determine whether a person is eligible or not. And the way they do it is World War II veterans, the oldest of World War II veterans, get the first choice, and then the oldest of Korean veterans get the second choice, and then Vietnam veterans get the last choice.
And how much is it a cost to the veteran to go?
It didn't cost me a dime.
And so how many veterans went on the trip this year?
There was 143, and we went over on the chartered plane with Southwest. And when we got to Baltimore, there were 3 buses waiting there to pick us up.
Now, did anyone greet you at Baltimore?
Yes, ma'am. The whole public and the Air Force give us a standing ovation when we arrived at Baltimore.
I bet that was a tearjerker.
Yes, it was.
And so the Air Force had a band or what?
No, they were just there to greet us. They were standing at attention and there to greet us.
Wonderful. Now, you said you were in Korea, and did you get to go to the Korean Memorial?
Yes, we did, and we placed a wreath at the Korean Memorial.
And so were there other men and women who also had been in Korea with you?
Yes, but I never knew how many.
And you didn't know anybody?
No. No, I was hoping that I would meet some of my buddies from Korea, but I didn't recognize any names.
And so now, what about, were there women veterans as well as men veterans on this trip?
Yes, there were 2 lady veterans that I know of, and the oldest lady was in World War II.
Is that right? That is something. And then what would you say was the most emotional or the highlight of the entire trip?
The posting of the Guard.
The posting of the Guard. And here we have a postcard from that ceremony that at Arlington National Cemetery, right?
Right. They was a 62 feet of a rubber mat that the guards walked back and forth on that twice while we were there. First, they took the old wreath away from the monument and put it around on the other side of the monument. And then they played taps, and then the new guards come on with a new monument, and they
put a new wreath.
A new wreath, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And they played taps, and then they exchanged guards. And what got me was on it, when the soldiers would make a right flank, they'd clap their shoes together. And every time they made a forward march or a right or left, when they'd clap their shoes together before they started.
And there's always a guard there, whether it's snowing or a blizzard or rain or shine or heat. They're always there, aren't they?
Yes, they change guards every hour, and that's 24/7.
Oh, they're there 24 hours a day, during the day and night, both.
Day and night, yes.
Even Christmas Day?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And I think it's a real honor for them to be selected for this duty. Now, is it just one branch of the military that provides the men there at the memorial?
Yes, it is Army, and they are very strict qualifications for the men to be able to do that.
And this is another picture. I'm going to turn it away. I'm sorry, Gil Robert. But first, there's the Tomb of the Unknown American Revolution, then the Tomb of the Unknown Civil War, and the United States Coast Guard Memorial, and also the United States Navy and Merchant Marine.
Well, the one we saw was the Tomb of the Unknown.
Oh, okay. You didn't get to see these others.
No.
And why do you think actually the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier was so the very highlight of your trip to Washington, D.C.?
Well, I kind of got emotional. That man gave everything and does not have a memorial other than the unknown tomb for him. In Arlington Cemetery, there's tombs for every veteran that died in the wars. And although that was awesome, the changing of the guard and the unknown grave, to me, was the highlight of the whole trip.
Now, you went to the World War II Memorial, which is a fairly newer memorial there in our nation's capital of Washington. What was it like?
Well, when you walked up to the pool or down in the bottom part of it, why, it was huge down there. And then after you walked down, why, it wasn't quite so big, but it was a pretty sight.
I bet it was. Can you remember World War II?
Yes, I can. I remember when they announced that the Japan had surrendered.
You remember that? Wonder how old you were.
I was about 18, I think, 18 or 19.
Now, where did you grow up?
I grew up at Manitou, Oklahoma. It's 8 miles north of Frederick, Oklahoma.
So do you think you were in high school at the time?
Yes. Yeah.
And so how young are you today?
I'm 83 and 5 months.
Well, I know this was a real thrill to be able not just to see this World War II memorial, but all of the memorial sites as well as Washington, D.C.
That's correct. It was all just awesome. People kind of make fun of me if I sing it's awesome, but that's the only way I know to put it.
Well, I got to talk to you before you went, and you were like a teenager going to Disneyland, but it was better than that, right?
It sure was. It was wonderful.
Tell us what this is.
This is the Air Force spiral, and what it represents is when you drop a bomb, why all of the debris comes up, and that's what this spiral represents for the Air Force. Yeah.
And I think this is a pretty new memorial, too. Now, did you also place wreaths at some of the other memorials?
Yes, we placed a wreath at the spirals.
Oh, you did?
Yes, and then we placed a wreath at the Air Force Memorial. We placed a wreath at the Navy Memorial, and then at the Coast Guard Memorial. And there's a ship in dry dock, reconnaissance ship there at the Coast Guard.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
And you went to the Vietnam Memorial or not?
Yes. Yes, I was standing right behind when they placed that wreath at the Korean Memorial.
And Jerry Hicks, who, of course, was a fighter pilot, and our former Bailey County Sheriff, now living in Lubbock, went also on this same trip that you did of honor flight.
That's correct. And we visited with one another a small amount of time.
I'm sure that this was a thrill for him to see the Vietnam Memorial as it was for you to see the Korean.
Yes, it was.
Now, this was one I did not know, that they had women in military service for America Memorial. Did you visit this?
Yes, I didn't go inside of it, but I did get off the bus and went to the restroom.
A necessity.
Yeah.
But that looks beautiful also. Now tell us about where the Enola Gay is. Where did you see the Enola Gay? At the National Air and Space Museum, perhaps?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
I was kind of lost there. And that's where there was a replica of the Japanese plane that they come out with at the end of World War II to knock the Jap planes down. And there was 2 replicas of that on the trip. And it's real interesting to see some of the equipment they used to fight with then over what they fight with now.
Oh, I'm sure the technology has changed and improved so greatly. Now, what is this?
The District of Columbia War Memorial. But we did not go in that. We just went by it.
Yeah, the bus just drove by.
Yes.
Now, did you go to the nation's capital?
Yes, we did. We went to the
Knockbauer?
Yeah, the place where the congressmen, representatives gather.
Oh, you went to the floor of the Senate and also the House?
Yes. And I sat in the speaker's chair.
Oh.
3 minutes.
You be careful. They might elect you as the Speaker of the House. And I'm sure you saw the Lincoln Memorial.
Yes, we did. And what do I want to say about the Lincoln Memorial?
Well, was it at night or during the day?
No, all of the trip was in the daytime.
Always you toured during the day?
Yes.
3 days, right?
Well, 2 days, really. It was about 10 o'clock when we got there Thursday morning, and we left Saturday afternoon about 3:30. And we toured the whole time between the time we landed until we took off.
Were you tired?
Was I? Yes, I was. Just a little bit tired.
Do you know how young the youngest person on the trip was?
No, I do not know that.
What about the oldest person?
I think the oldest one was a veteran of World War II from Earth that was 91 years old.
Oh, and do you know who that was?
I can't remember his name. My boss at Ray Lee said that he went to school with his daughter.
Is that right? Well, a small world, isn't it, after all?
Yes, it is. I wanted to say something about the Lincoln Memorial. The lake out in front of it is a mirror lake, and the Washington Monument sits at the opposite end from the Lincoln, and that was a pretty sight. The Washington Memorial standing up there big and proud. And
what about, were there any other things that you got to visit besides what we have spoken about?
We did go by the Smithsonian Library. When we got back from the Air and Space Memorial, why, they done a little driving around, and we went by the Smithsonian Library and just saw the front of it. And then we went by the National Cathedral and saw it. And that was the last of the trip.
And so it was all completely provided by people who appreciate the veterans of our country, right?
Yes, I asked the lady that interviewed me before I went, I said, how do you fund this? And she said it's strictly donations. And they have fundraisers periodically in Lubbock, and I'm sure they're in other communities where they have fundraisers to finance this.
Well, thank you so much for your service to our country and to our freedom and to our world. Donald Phelps of Muleshoe has just returned home from the South Plains Honor Flight out of Lubbock to Washington, D.C.